Welcome, Negronis with Nord, episode 74. My first episode as a married man. Take a look at that. I had never worn jewelry before, so when we were like looking at rings, I was a little like, I put it on and I was like, God, it's like feels so weird and doesn't feel right. And then from like the second the like ceremony was over, I like was looking down, I was like, oh, I love this. I think it looks so great. I enjoy wearing it. Being married is so fun. People are like, does it feel different? I think most people are like, no, it feels no different. I actually think it does feel quite a bit different in like all the like great, fun ways. Wedding was incredible. I am completely overwhelmed about how to even fucking begin to talk about it. I just got like on social, 800 film photos back last night. Our photographer, Joe Greer, did an amazing job. He shot 85 rolls. That's like, 2,000 photos. Aaron, who edits these videos, sent me like 700 photos the other day. And I took like 1,000 digital photos over the 2 weeks as well. So I don't know. I guess the only thing I'll talk about for the rest of the year is the wedding, because there is an enormous amount of content. But it was also very nice to not feel pressured to talk about it. I pretty much stayed off social for a few weeks and just enjoyed getting married. And then I call our midi moon, not mini moon, because like mini moon I would say has to be sub 5 days, and this was 7. So it's like, it's not a full honeymoon, but it's right in the middle. So midi moon. I'm coining that. I'm taking it. I'm coining that phrase. Actually, I have to give props. That was my wife who came up with that. Hopefully, you all enjoyed the stand-in episodes with Parrish and then Parrish and Aaron. I think Parrish did an amazing job. Maybe he can just replace me. But generally, we want to be bringing more people on. So hopefully, y'all enjoyed that. Okay, this is going off the rails. Let's get more interesting. We're getting back into the swing of things. I'm just gonna like burn through a couple of questions from y'all. Number 1, tips for seeing slowed growth as a creator. First thing you have to like determine is like how important is growth to you. If you really want to grow your following, which most people do, and you're willing to put the time and effort in, it's important first to decide like, yes, this is important for me, and like what I want is not to just have fun on social, not to connect with my existing audience, but I want to grow. The easiest thing to do is like look at the posts that are doing well, and whatever helps you visualize that, whether that's putting it into a Google Doc, whether that's just looking at the posts on platform, whether that's literally printing them out, I would look at your top 10 posts for the last 6 months and look at your bottom 10 posts for the last 6 months. The simplest answer is do more of what was working and do less of what was not working, right? That is a simple thing, but like is very important. Every time you post, you lose some followers, right? And if those posts aren't helping you gain followers, then like you will steadily lose followers as you post, and your account will not, your growth won't just slow down, but you might also start shrinking. So simplest answer, do more of what's working, do less of what's not working. Do that audit every 3 months and continually reassess and realign around the things that your audience are connecting with. The second and more important thing is you have to bring new people to your page. To get new followers, people first have to find your page, right? There's gonna be 2 ways that they find your page, either through Discover, either on TikTok, a For You page, Instagram on the Discover page or in feed, or they will see it through people sharing your posts, either on TikTok or on Instagram. So it is why we talk so much about shareable content. It's why it is so important to create content that people feel compelled to share, which means it has to be good enough that people want other people to see it, or create so much engagement that it ticks over in the algorithm and you get like thrown onto the For You page and put into other people's feeds. Then, you have to have a situation where when they land on your page, they like convert and say, I would like to follow this person, right? So it's like a very simple process. They have to see a piece of content from you. They have to think that piece of content is interesting enough to go to your page, and they have to think that page is interesting enough to follow you. You just need to optimize for each one of those steps. You need to make sure you're creating shareable, interesting content that is going to grab people's attention, either grab people's attention and get them to share it, or grab the algorithm's attention and get them to put it into people's feeds. You need to have a page that is easy to understand what you're about and is creating conversions. People are landing on that page and they're deciding to follow you. And then you have to retain those followers, right? They need to make sure that, and this is what happens a lot on TikTok, you go viral for one thing, but that's not the content you actually create. And so you may get a spike in following, but then over the next 2 or 3 months, you lose all those followers because they realize like, wait, this person isn't creating that type of content anymore. So you need to collect attention and eyeballs, you need to convert it into followers, and you need to retain those followers over the long term. And ultimately, it's like a very simple equation that is very difficult to get right, but just break it down and be really methodical about it. And that's probably the clearest way for you to figure out how to grow. Tips for building a full-time creator career while working a full-time job. Great question. Most creators, unless you come from some sort of generational wealth, I suppose, and don't need to work, will need to work while you're building your following and building that, that platform. There's 100 other places you could probably get advice about how to manage it and how to batch content and shooting, all that stuff, right? An important question to ask yourself is like, what do you ultimately want out of life and your career? Do you want to be a full-time creator, or do you want to have a full-time job and be a creator? We have a lot of people here at Fohr who, have decent sized followings, who could say, I want to go full-time and be a creator, who don't because they don't find it fulfilling. When I started this company, I was kind of at a crossroads. Do I pursue photography and social full-time, or do I start a company? I ultimately felt that creating content and being a creator for me wasn't stimulating enough to fulfill all of the parts of my curiosity and what I wanted out of life. And so it just wasn't a good fit for me. And so first you just have to make that decision, because if you want to do both, well then, again, you have to know what is the focus? Do I want to excel at my job, or do I want to excel at being a creator? Now, when I was growing a following and obsessed with Tumblr, and I had jobs that I didn't like, it was my focus. I came into the office, I probably spent the first 2 or 3 hours of the day just doing Tumblr, writing a post, pulling things together, editing photos, not doing my actual job. I made it a rule that I was going to take at least one good photo every day. And so I would spend my lunch hour, mornings, nights, taking walks around the city, shooting things. It was my sole focus. The job was totally secondary in my mind. That's one way to do it. And you can say I am using this job to pay my bills as I figure out how to make it full-time as a creator. Or again, my focus is actually my career, being a creator. Having a following is never going to be a bad thing. Building a following is going to help your corporate career as well. It proves to people that you know how to work these platforms, how to build a community, how to connect with people. Growth may slow down. You may not get as many opportunities. The account may never get as big because your focus is your actual job. So I think that it's important to first decide what you want and then build your life around getting that as quickly and efficiently as possible. And that's probably more important than any advice I can give you about managing your time and workflows, and again, batching content and all of that, which you can find in any number of blogs if you just Google how to be a creator and have a job. Somebody else asks, I talked about how I believe long-form content is dead or will die. They were saying, it makes them a little sad because they love, I'll read it here. I found it rather disheartening because I do love long-form content creation, but I think you still make a valid point. But I noticed, interestingly, you made that point in a piece of long-form content that I was watching and loving. I think it's one of those things we'd like to believe could happen. It is incredibly difficult to push back against a trend tide. Touché. Any plans to change your content strategy based on the belief that long-form is dead? I think that goes back to part of like what you enjoy doing and what you are good at. You know, I don't feel as skilled at creating a 15-second video that is going to like encapsulate my point and, you know, do really well on TikTok. You know, we have been playing around with cutting some of this up into TikTok. We've been playing around with taking some of the concepts and filming TikToks with it. You know, I doubt it will really work necessarily. I'm still trying to figure out if I can make it work. But ultimately, I still do this because I enjoy doing it. And it's the best way I know how to communicate these things to you and share some of what I want to share with this, you know, this community. This is the best way I know how to do it. It is not the best way to build a following. It is not the best way to get eyeballs. I am knowingly doing something that I understand doesn't work as well, is going against the kind of tide. But it's how I want to do it. It's how I feel that can be most effective. And so ultimately that's why I do it. Now, there is long form content that works really well. I mean, you know, fucking podcasts are 2.5 hours or something. I don't listen to that shit, obviously, because I like have more than 2 brain cells to rub together, but it does really well, you know? And so there are still always going to be outliers. And it's why it's so important for you to do stuff that gets you excited and you feel passionate about, and ultimately probably what is going to be the best chance at the content connecting with the audience as well. Last one, super helpful if you could talk about working with a manager as an influencer. Someone said they're thinking about signing with someone that wants 50% of the income. What's the average percentage a manager should earn? Like 50% is truly insane. 20% is standard. 15% probably as you get to be bigger and have a bigger following and you're making more money. 50% is extortion, and like I would say like borderline, not even borderline, what's the word I'm looking for? Immoral. Like you should, no serious manager would ever ask for 50%. There are a lot of bad actors out there. We get notes increasingly. It's happening with like increasing frequency where influencers reach out and they're like, hey, my manager has been stealing money from me. They are telling the brands I'm charging one thing and telling me that the brands are paying me another. There are a lot of scammy, scummy managers out there that are feeding on people's desire to be represented and to have a manager. You know, don't fall into that trap. Understand that like this person is also your representative, and I've always said I think it is better to wait to keep growing your following, keep growing the business until you can work with a top tier management company rather than try and get a manager early. There's a lot of creators that we don't work with because we just can't stand working with their management, or their management teams are completely incompetent and make it impossible for us to do their job. But again, there's also a lot out there that are scam artists and are doing things like saying that they're going to take 50% of your earnings. Run away from that and do not engage. Happy to answer any other questions if we have them. We also can bring some people from a management company on and we can talk about how to better work with a manager if that's something you're interested in. Let us know. We're easing back in after my wedding and honeymoon. As always, keep the questions coming. We'll keep the answers going, and we'll see you next week.